Alrighty, y'all. We're back with Brother Taj Tarik Bey from MOABITE OASIS.
Yeah, it's so we want to remind everyone whenever, because what I was mentioning, to back up a little bit, I was mentioning House Joint Resolution 194, and that's been before the House, Florida House, for final ratification in the near future. And I'm making comments on it in its structure, etc. And while it may sound pretty comprehensive to someone who doesn't know history and law, anyone who knows history and law knows that it's a placation statement. And if accepted as it is, it's actually still stealing the birthright, etc., because it's really not setting any solid ground. It only appears that way for someone who does not know how to read well or how to interpret the choice of adjectives and verbs, etc., in relationship to its construct, including the misclassification. Because in principle and law, first misclassification, if there's what you call a nom de guerre that's accepted, that's constructed by European colonists, it still does not deal with the issue. It still makes the people subject or subordinate to the constructor of that instrument, meaning that you can't call a pit bull a collie and then say, well, it's still a dog and therefore it doesn't matter, because it absolutely does matter. So when you're dealing with nation states, in order to make a right of claim on an estate and for the common law to have force in law to trump the Roman law, civil law, and all other types of law, there must be a direct demonstrable and archaic customs and traditions of that bloodline, of that people, relationship is superior to the Roman law and civil law and the Antilochus, etc. And they know very well that this is one of the major reasons why the original operations of the so-called Freedmen's Bureau in 1865 to 1868, its real mission was to restore the people's names, their nationality, their religion, and then restore some of their estate in the nature of them being recolonized on their own land, America. And this is where that loose term of the 40 acres and the mule has its origin. That legislation at that time dealing with recolonization of the Aboriginal people on their land, but it became quite obvious that the Europeans would have by act of that format of that 3630 parallel issue would have given most of the land back. And of course, as everybody knows, they later murdered Lincoln for multiple reasons. Not only with his having defended Charles Chenapue, who was Opus Dei, but also with the fact that the United States Corporation Company was under the pressure of being subverted from within, etc. Anyway, and then due to 1861, when the Congress adjourned sine die, in fact, the United States as an operative entity no longer existed anyway. And so that had much to do also with the Europeans' motive of murdering Lincoln, etc., as the execution of the war was actually meaning that everybody were within the order of that structure, operating from a private capacity, but exercising the authorities that is only sanctioned via the Constitution contract to do business at North America, which of course is the heart of the Moroccan Empire, which had been slowly overthrown, etc. And then with the United States Corporation Company doing business here, it's an appendage under occupation of Morocco or Al-Morocc or America. And that must be understood by the descendants, so as when they're looking at any instruments that the Europeans create in the name of so-called apology or any other format, etc. If they're not really tying the people back to the land, they're not apologizing because they're still stealing their resources under the doctrine of discovery, ETC, and so that would be essentially still a perpetration of an act of genocide, which it harmonizes actually with their discovery doctrine, as opposed to being something that goes in another direction to the positive. It actually is simply a placation statement, and then at the same time a maintenance of the same issue, etc. So I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention too, so as some of these things might be, as they are made public, that the people are not deceived by them, etc. Anyway, good brother, Q.
Yeah, I'm here, Taj.
Yeah. If there's any particular thing that you wanted to add to that in your consideration, I'd appreciate it.
You know you a hard man to follow, right?
No, I'm not. Stuff you already know.
Yo, I don't. I think that we might be a good thing to do a breakdown on the Freedmen's Bureau.
Oh yeah, well Well, in general, the Freedmen's Bureau was set up in around early 1865. It was generally organized in like 1864, 63 as an idea, set up in 1865. And what the Freedmen's Bureau was essentially to do in general was to, as they say, repatriate, but you already know patriarchy is actually the Europeans' format. But the deal of it is supposed to reorient the Asiatic African people back into their culture, which means they were supposed to be given back those principles of Islam, etc. And we're talking about the science of the culture. We're not talking about dogmata, or what you call the religious ritual. We're talking about the science that rules the world, etc. They're supposed to the people were supposed to be able to go in at any place and look at parts of land by their own choice and pick that land, and they were to be given minimally, though in some cases more, but minimally 40 acres, minimally, and a home and the supplies, whatever they needed to build, however they needed or however they wanted, was to be built, etc., with all support finances, etc., including land animals, if they needed land animals, and this is loosely just saying 40 acres and a mule, but it actually included all other support systems to sustain after the initial action. So it wasn't limited to that, but that's the general cover. Also, a reset up of schools, etc., and other necessary institutions, whereas they would be the general knowledge of the culture and their history would be restored. They would be relieved of the burden of carrying the European names, meaning that they would be going back to their own names, because you cannot transact business in another man's name and have claim of a state. So all of those nuances were to be taken care of. That's essentially, in a rough draft, what the Freedmen's Bureau structure was. And of course, what it really meant in many ways, it would have set a foundation for decolonization. This was one of the motives as the Europeans dismantled it within 3 years, etc. Because they would have had, not only would the people been recolonized on their land, it would have been dismantling colonization, etc., by default, etc. So within 3 years, they squandered the finances, etc., subverted it and closed it within 3 years, and that's when they set up the corpse, what is known as the corpse. They had to create a dead venue in order to maintain the appearance of the liberation and the restoration of a state. And this was the general fundamental motivation on them creating what is known as the corpse person. And the corpse person was constructed with the spurious 14th Amendment, whereas they created a corpse and then tagged it with a name, a title that appeared to relate to the people, and then they needed to get the people to agree to be that. And this is where they were assigning so-called people of African descent who agreed to be Negroes and blacks as preachers, and their job was to convince the people to convert to Christianity, which is really Constantinism, to agree to be Negroes or coloreds or Indians, which would serve the Europeans' purpose for creating schism. And schism is a military term used for dividing so they could conquer the people. So some of the people would be black, some of the people would be called colored, some of the people would be called Negro, some people would be called Indian, and then they created different names for the different territories, tribal, so they created tribalism and accentuated the tribalism, and then getting the Moors to agree to be different tribes as if they were separate people. And they closed the Freedmen's Bureau, created the 14th Amendment, and they removed, I think it's around 1874, in that area was pretty much the last official time when they would generally publicly publish the original article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections. Of course, and with Article 12, with the original article of Amendment 13, people of African descent could never be U.S. citizens. Then that's kind of logical, because U.S. is actually a colony of Britain, and they're a British colony as distinguished from the Aboriginal people of the land which they are occupying. And, of course, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship is the basis upon which the interchange or the interfacings are to be made between the Moors and the Christians. And this is where the Treaty of 1786, 1787, and then the Ordinance of 1787 is constructed and analyzed and ratified before the adoption of the Constitution, the American Constitution, for Europeans doing business, commerce at Morocco, which is the business contract known as the American Constitution, 1789, ETC. And so with that connection, with them closing or shutting down or hiding the original Article of Amendment, which is the Nobility Clause of the 13th Amendment with its original 20 sections, they expose or they reconstruct and make it into two sections in relationship to forced servitude, and then they construct the corpse instrument or the corpse ens legis, and that's the 14th Amendment, ETC, to imply that they were taking the heirs of the estate, or i.e. the Aboriginal people, the Moors, were defeated and held to servitude artificially and under color law, and then make them by legislation, quote unquote, U.S. citizens. And this is where the corpse comes in, because the citizenship is actually a dead citizenship, as it is actually an ens legis chattel and not actually a liberation nor a living sentient being citizenship. And also it is based in an ens legis, a legislated, one-sided, linear statement, and it actually came from field marshals. It didn't really even come through the legislature, etc. And so this 14th Amendment corpse, it took a time and it took a while, but once the Moors started agreeing to be Negroes and blacks, they actually solidified bureaucratic slavery, and you know that slavery is used connotatively, and so it made them actually a corpse person, and they think under the false pretenses that there's a living, sentient being having or gaining the liberties lost, etc., and the right of movement, etc., on the land, and the restoration of their estate, and thought that all those things which had been removed or promised would be restored or instituted. And, of course, they were not. So the Freedmen's Bureau was destroyed, desolated, ravaged, and the 14th Amendment was created, 14th and 15th Amendment was created to cover up the original 13th Amendment with its 20 sections and to institutionalize slavery. And thus we have, from that point up to today, the corpse person being the interlegus, which is a substitute for the right of heirship to the Moors or Aboriginal people. 14th Amendment person, that's the corpse. Comment.
All right. Well, I think that you have been teaching this for how long now, Todd?
Huh?
How long have you been teaching this?
About 30 years or more.
30 years. I'm humbled and honored to have the opportunity for you to teach me. And I pray we don't have another 30 years of teaching to do. Because at some point, it's bigger than just what's been done to the Moors. It's bigger than what's been done to the Aborigines. Because now the attempt is to do it to every living man, woman, and child walking the planet.
Yes.
And that's what we have to get people to wake up to.
Yes.
And what was being was a prototype that's now being used on you.
Yeah, you got that right.
And that's what we need to do.
And you know what? And this is because the world is starting to isolate them. Actually, they were isolating the other nation states under the principle of the Niceno-Constantinopolitan hegemony. But in doing so, they actually, and as it has arrived up to this day, and now absolutely accelerating, they have, by virtue of enforcing the Constantine hegemony, they have actually isolated themselves by isolating nations away from them for control purposes, and now they have no friends. And as you can see, for those who are up on top of world history, international politics, they can see that their two major allies, which is France and Germany, are now being estranged, and they're moving toward Russia and China, etc., and India, and the Eastern Bloc of countries. And this also where the U.S. corporation company operatives have been throwing the middle class under the bus, and logically they're sacrificing their own because they're trying to stay alive because, politically, because the nations of the earth are getting rid of their U.S. T-bonds, which of course is not backed by gold, but has been backed by all the instruments, the straw instruments that they've created, from the birth certificates to the marriage certificates to the Social Security cards, all these misrepresented instruments, including the corporate states as franchisees, stealing the people's conveyances by stealing the manufacturers' original titles of origins to their trucks, their cars, their motorcycles, and all their other vehicles, etc., that's supposed to be private property, and actually taking them to the public side on the stock market, etc. And this is the basis upon which they've been commanding people to wear seat belts and taking people's cars if they don't buy insurance from their insurance company, that kicks back to the politicians, etc. And there was the whole Ponzi scheme from the banking, also is in the insurance industry, etc. And all of those instruments that they've been deceiving the people with is actually what backs those U.S. T-bonds, etc. And so the civilized world, getting tired of them actually using the energy of the people to wage war against the people, are now dumping those T-bonds as an example, because they can't cash them, etc. As an example, China as a nation state, sovereign nation state, owns, as we speak right now, over 60%, and I repeat, over 60% of the prime property in southern Manhattan as we speak right now, and accelerating. So that'll give you an idea of what's really taking place. Now, keep in mind that with Henry Kissinger and other U.S. corporate operatives for the Rockefellers, et cetera, and the Rothschilds, etc., that they have been subverting all the Muslim nations to force them to take the U.S. dollar and do all transactions in oil, et cetera, via the U.S. dollar. And this is where you hear the term sometimes where they call the petrodollar. And the power of the petrodollar is what they've been actually using to fund their war machine against the very countries who've been buying them. And it's sort of like it's really imploding, actually. Now, understanding that the fall of the hegemony, of the Constantine hegemony, is essentially the fall of the U.S. corporation empire, etc. And so due to that fact, to save themselves, they're sacrificing their own, not to be confused with the fact that their mission under the doctrine of discovery is the theft of the wealth of the Moors, etc., and the destruction of Asiatic African people. But their position is this, that in the process of war, etc., there shall be collateral. And so they're sacrificing first their middle class. So that must not be confused or used as a justification for what they do to others just because they do it to some of their own. They're doing it because it's part of their war tactic, etc., knowing that if they do not make any sacrifice whatsoever, the people will rebel even quicker because they will recognize and they cannot deny the injustice that is so absolutely and indisputably obvious. So they sacrifice some of their own to make it look good, but their goal is to carry out the doctrine of discovery. So the doctrine of discovery is the real mother that people have been out of misinformation calling white supremacy, etc. So that's their motive as to sacrificing some of their own. And so it's in many of the Europeans' interests, yes, to restore the republic because it's based on Muslim law. And, of course, Obama went to Egypt, and he pretty much said that. He told the people that the United States Constitution is derived from Muslim law. Now, those who know history and law know that. But logically, has not been taught in schools, and so most of the people, and maybe some of the listeners, but not all of them, but most of the people on high frequency are aware of that. But some of the listeners, peripheral listeners, may not have been aware of that. And of course, that's once you understand that, there's a mental reconnect, even at that fact. And this is another reason why Obama, when he made that speech in Egypt, and keep in mind, when you're looking at the Circle 7 Quran that Drew Ali prepared for the Moors and the restoration of their estate, he did the trust estate. The parameters of the estate is in chapter 47, and this is where the aggregate outline of the estate is, etc. And so when Obama went to he cooked it, and you'll see that in the Circle 7 Quran, in the article of estate, you'll see that Egypt is the capital dominion of the Moroccan Empire. And so you see Obama went to Egypt, and he made that speech and exposed that the United States Constitution is derived from Muslim law. At the same time, Michelle, his wife, triangulated and broke tradition, and she went to the Alhambra, the last stronghold of the Moors before the Constantine hegemony overthrew under the Battle of Granada. And she went to the Alhambra, etc., and the people received her well. Then when they came back, they had pictures taken all over, and you will notice that the Moorish flag is to the left, confirming what Obama said, that the United States Constitution is derived from Muslim law. Then he also made, within his speech, he went directly to Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli. And you already know the Europeans singing in the Marine song from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Of course, that's the Moroccan Empire. And so Obama spoke of the Treaty of Tripoli, Article 11. And, of course, when you go into your treaty book, you will see that the United States in no way was founded upon the Christian religion, which is another false concept that many of our people have, which also causes them to have a mental disconnect of the real history. And then, at the same time, it would confuse those who don't know the real history as to why Thomas Jefferson and the other so-called founding fathers all had Korans. Now you know, because they're occupying Morocco. So now, as for those Europeans who are less suffering from the General Education Board that was set up by Rockefeller in 1902 for dumbing the people down, Europeans had the privilege of not, or how you would say, being protected by the Discovery Doctrine order of having separate schools. And so up until maybe the 60s, for the most part, the Europeans had a proper education because they were in separate schools. So they know that they're colonists, but they must teach the people that they're Americans so they can steal their birthright. And now that the middle class has been thrown under the bus, they want the republic back. And this is where you have a lot of your so-called sovereignty groups and your freedom groups amongst the Europeans because they've been thrown under the bus. But as you recall, when you have people like Stokely Carmichael, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, Emmett Till, many of the brothers and sisters, Harriet Tubman, on and on and on and on and on. Angela Davis, many of the liberators, Huey Newton, many of the liberators amongst the Asiatics who were fighting for their rights. You didn't hear anybody talking about the Republic, the Constitution, the rights, the straw man, anything. Now that the Europeans are being thrown under the bus, now you're getting all this flooded information. But keep in mind, Drew Ali said he's going to make the European tell you the truth, etc. So they want the Republic back. However, it is good, it is well, because we made a place for them. That's what the Constitution was for them to do business at Morocco. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, let's not get it twisted. They're not Americans. They're Europeans. Now, if they want this thing right, tell the truth. Help tell the truth. Not just trying to preserve their estate. Tell the truth about the estate ain't theirs. It's ours. And we were willing to share it. That's why we gave them a treaty and a constitution to do business here. So let's get this thing fixed, but let's not pretend, let's identify the errors and stop the game. That's my point. You get the point?
Definitely, brother. We definitely get the point. It's Sharif. We're getting ready to go to a quick break, and then we will bring back, we actually have a good question for a couple callers, so we will be right back after these.
High frequency radio. Sync up.
Having issues with credit? When they say no, we say yes. Have a new start at credit in less than 24 hours. Hablamos Español. Some of our clients we've assisted are victims of identity theft. Others are creating credit to acquire a vehicle. Still, some need to just move into a new place. While others need a cell phone. We help these cases and many more. Start a new credit profile today at Score 13 LLC. And remember, for our Latin-speaking community, Hablamos Español.
Validated by the Social Security Administration, SafeSgain, Lexis, Nexus, and SkipTrace. We aim to educate our customers and establish a new life of worthy credit.
Contact us at score13llc@gmail.com. We also have available private consultations. Email our offices directly at score13llc@gmail.com. That's SCORE 13llc@gmail.com.
Peace to the gods and goddesses, kings and queens of the universe. This is your hostess, Sister L. Do you need more balance, prosperity, health, love, or finances? or just need to take a break from that nagging court case? If you answer yes, then tune in to Prosperity Wednesdays every midweek, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, on High Frequency Radio, the best station on the planet. We come to elevate your subconscious, conscious, and superconscious to a wealth of information. We bring you the hottest guests with an abundance of knowledge. We vibe on solutions, not problems. I hope to hear you on the line.
High Frequency Radio. Sync up.
And we are back with MOABITE OASIS with Brother Taj Tarik Bey. Taj, we got our first call on the line. This is Brother Howell L.
You're right on, good brother.
He has a quick question about the Freedmen's Bureau.
Okay, Islam, Brother Taj Tarik. This is Brother Powell from Indianapolis. I'm the brother on crutches when you came about 5 or 6 years ago and you was teaching us. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, right on, good brother. How's it going, good brother?
Hey, it's going excellent, man. We still striving for the cause. I wanted to make just a couple of statements. I love how you brought up House Joint Resolution 194 and about how the Europeans have made the apology, and how you said just because they make the apology, that's not sufficient enough. They need to do something that constitutes that. And we've been doing our studies, and we came across how you touched on so many facts about the Freedmen's Bureau Act. And one of the things that was a component of that Freedmen's Bureau Act, according to the Constitutional Globe, there are 3 bills. One is 516, the other one is 539 and 544, and it coincides with the Dred Scott case that says, and when they talk about the Freedmen's Bureau, that leads the door to 2 things. That's the 13th Amendment with 20 sections, and it also leads to the Leviticus 25:10, because that's where they got the 1320 from, which says that there must be a uniform code of naturalization, not based on the 14th Amendment, but based on that 13th Amendment with 20 sections, where we have our own bureau set up to handle our affairs, like how you were saying we needed an embassy, back in the day, and that's what the national side of the movement is for, but so many other brothers have sold out the cause and, kept it religious, and they don't talk about the national side of the movement.
They don't even keep it religious because they don't even teach religion, because true religion is cosmogony. What they do is teach emotional prayer doctrine, just like the church. And so we've got to stop even giving them credit for even teaching religion, because you already know as soon as you go into Adam chamber, it will take you from Jesus to Yahshua, and it will take you to the Kabbalistic instructions, etc., of true Africa, etc. So they're not even teaching them religion, less more teaching them nationalism. So COINTELPRO operations have been quite effective. And logically, this is why it is great, and I'm honored to be a member of the family of high frequency and venues like this that really start giving the people workable information in spite of the sellouts.
Brother Taj, I got 2 quick questions for you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
It's a brother who wrote the book, The African Origins of Freemasonry, and he's got a Facebook page. His name is Zachariah P. Jermillion. And what he wants to do is he wants to have a symposium of all the Moors and bring all the Moors together by the mid of next year. He wants, you brothers with the round table, Great Seal. Then he wants to bring in Pleasant. Then he wants Brighton Bay and all the Moors to come together, because it's like now we done seen all the comedic videos. We seen Dr. Ben. We seen Henry Clark, and them brothers gave us the legacy. Now it's time for us to come together and form a round table. R. Jones Bay, all those brothers form that round table, and then out of all of us, then we pick a head of the Moorish state, and then we can start getting back into the constitutional fold of government.
Exactly. Go ahead, continue.
Because I know they're getting ready to cut me off. So my last thing is this: I want you to, if you could, answer what is the possibility for us forming that Moorish symposium now? Because I don't want to wait till you in a wheelchair and Brother Red Pill and all them got you on YouTube.
Keep in touch through high frequency. I'm already for it.
Okay,
so
and then secondly,
I'm letting you know now. I'm all ready for it.
Okay, then the last question is, when you was touching on how I think you said China owns like 60% of the United States.
Over 60% of the prime property in South Manhattan, New York, now belongs to the Chinese government.
Now, if Noble Drew Ali in the year, 1928, he went to the Havana, Cuba conference and claimed all the land back from, from all the way from Alaska all the way down to the tip of Chile.
Yes.
Once we get organized, can't we? Doesn't our mandate in Chapter 47 trump all of that?
Yes, doesn't he? Yes. We got to remember he said in Drew Ali, we told the Moors, he said our brothers will be coming from the east to help us. And then he also said he's going to make the Europeans tell the truth, right? And he said industry is going to come to a screeching halt, and when it starts up again, it will start up in favor of the Asiatics. So put that in context with these considerations of what's going on.
Thank you, good brother. Islam and peace.
Islam and peace.
Yeah, we're still
so
screening.
We should all.
Yeah, we're just screening. We're screening some more calls, but we definitely got one or two more that we can handle before we end the show here. So just go
right
ahead.
on, good brother. Go ahead. Is the questioner on the phone? Is the questioner on call right now? But anyway, I'll remind the audience, part of the discussion is House Joint Resolution 194, our comments on it. The original Article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections, comment on it. And, of course, as everyone knows, Section 12 of the original Article of Amendment 13, that people of African descent cannot be U.S. citizens. And that must be understood. But everything must be put in context, because people got to remember that the government is Societas Republica et Americanos. That's the government. The occupying corporate entity is the United States Corporation Company belonging to Britain, ETC, which has been misjudged by the people who don't know the real history, thinking that the United States Corporation Company is the country. It is not the country. The country is Morocco. The occupying European power is the United States Corporation Company, which is a subsidiary and colony of Britain. And that must be clear in all our conversations so that we can approach all that we do with a proper concept, who's who, what's what belongs to who, etc. And therefore, all estate in reversion must be clearly and rightfully restored to the rightful heirs. That is the Moors of the Northwest Territories, i.e., Northwest of Mexico, Northwest Africa, North America, the North Gate Temple of the Moon and Sun.
Brother Taj, we have a caller on the line. This is Brother L. Bey. He has a question about trust and tying it to Noble Drew Ali's. You are on the line, brother.
Islam, Moors. Yes, my question is specifically addressing a trust issue.
Talk a little louder, because I apologize that I'm actually traveling, so you have to talk clearly in the phone. Go ahead.
Yes, please. My question is concerning about establishing a trust account, but constructing that trust linked or in a way where it would be utilizing or linked to the express trust that Noble Drew Ali invested in Cook County. Is that possible? Is that wise?
This is my position. All Moors who are claiming the birthright, whatever you do, whatever you can do, in organization with positive and active Moors, I'm in support of it, because it needs to be done, because COINTELPRO operatives who have been pretty much administering the movement have pretty much undermined much of what Noble Drew Ali has done for the Moors. And, of course, a lot of people who come into the movement have not been aware that Those things were already done. They just had not been carried out. And so whatever is done in going in that direction, I am in support of it, etc. As long as it's done in honor and as long as it's done with the consideration of the nation and not of clubs or sections, that it recognizes and acknowledges the people of the land, etc., all of them, bar none, and that every one of Moorish descent, African descent, at North America has access to be a party and part to their lost estate in restoration, and therefore their estate in reversion and preserved in trust. I'm with you on that.
Islam.
All right, brother, we have time for one more question about status from the Perfect Black. Brother Perfect Black, you're on the line live with MOABITE OASIS with Taj Tarik Bey.
Hey, how you doing, Taj?
Islam Perfect Black, how's it going, good brother?
Man, it's always a pleasure to hear all this history. Right. It's like being at the Library of Congress, for real. It's the dusty book they don't want us to know about. You bringing it out. This is like beautiful.
Yeah.
But the question I wanted to ask, and I hope some of my questions aren't redundant, but the question I wanted to ask, and maybe as a question or statement, is, with us being the true inhabitants of El Morocco, which they call America, how is it someone from the executive branch, a dead president in 1933, from the executive office, rent the gold system out, the money system out, to foreign bankers, and we being the inhabitants of this here, indigenous of this land, that some dead European, who was a president, can pledge our labor to work for foreign international bankers, living on what is ours.
Yes. And they've done that. That's what the House Joint Resolution 192 is. And, of course, you know, the original, the thrust of that, or the foundation for that, was set up with Woodrow Wilson as a countermeasure to Noble Drew Ali. That was done between 1910 and 1913. And, of course, you know, Noble Drew Ali set up the Old Canaanite Temple in 1913 in order to get these people cognizant and competent so that they could be capable of taking their places amongst the affairs of men and reclaiming their lost estate, therefore their estate in reversion, as Brother Paul Savage has so aptly been dispensing to the family, etc. So when we talk about reversioner, our position as Moorish Americans is reversioner, etc. And I'm agreeing with you 100%. But let's remind each other that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, etc., simply being a member of the orders, both Malta and Skull and Bones, etc., Knights Templars, etc., Knights of Columbus, which all of those are members. Those are members of one or the other, or a combination of them, is simply carrying out or solidifying what was set forth already by Woodrow Wilson in 1913, etc. And so this is, again, where the reversionary interest in relationship to the birth certificate is made, although we already know that it's also the marriage certificates, etc., and other instruments. Much emphasis is put on the birth certificate because that's where they claim the body itself, and logically, if they claim the body, they're claiming the liberties and the estate that goes with it. So I just wanted to, qualify that. But I'm aware of that, and the people need to be aware of that, and we need to be cognate in our consciousness of making a reversionary argument or reclamation of our estate.
So when we're in here and they're making a presumption that, we're one of these slaves and someone else is pledging our labor, what is our rebuttal to that presumption? I mean, we use Resolution 75, or, we use House Joint Resolution 194, that, I'm not one of these
We could, in other words, this is essentially what it is. Because remember, their capacity to maintain that from a legal process perspective consists of the following. When they put their family names on our people, and our people volunteer to continue to use those names, in law, they're acting as agency. And by acting as agency, they've abandoned their name, therefore their right of heirship. Because a person who's transacting business in another man's name logically cannot be descendable in their own pedigree or in their own bloodline. And then being Moorish Americans, they were disengaged by virtue of calling themselves or agreeing to be blacks or agreeing to be Indians, all these fictions which are actually nom de guerre, which are war names, etc. People don't know that they're war names. They're used to support the spurious nature of the corpse or the 14th Amendment, which would give the European, by virtue of him creating that venue in the first place, logical default jurisdiction over themselves and their offspring, etc. We got to look at that when we're analyzing all that they do. And so by us transacting business in those names, that makes us agency. By us agreeing to be Negro, black, and colored, that takes us out of the bloodline. Therefore, you can't be an heir to an estate of a pedigree with a brand. It can't happen. A slave can't own property, etc. Things along that line. And then we claim to be Christians, which means we were enemies to our own cause because the action that was initiated against us is the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed hegemony, which is really the official name of Christianity. So therefore, you cannot play chess from the same side of the board as your enemy and then be valid.
Very true, Brother Taj. Well, we get ready to come up on the last couple minutes of this episode. If you want to go ahead and give your parting words on your safe travels.
Yes, thank you, good brother. I say this, for all listeners, try to get a copy of the Circle 7 Quran, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Moorish Science Temple of America. Read chapter 47 and read it thoroughly and analyze it and look at the aggregate outline of the Moorish Empire, and then you'll understand what Obama was saying when he went to Hikupta and he exposed that the United States Constitution is derived from Muslim law, and you'll understand why Michelle broke tradition and went to the Alhambra, etc. And then you'll also understand when you go into the Treaty of Tripoli, Article 11, you'll see complete what Obama said in part, and it'll wake you up a little bit more. And I agree that we all need to come together, but we need to come together on knowledge and not on emotions or belief, but on knowledge. Peace, high frequency, high frequency, high frequency.
High frequency radio. Sync up. Sync up. Sync up.